talking today about cooperation and commitment with some great speakers on board. This webinar will be recorded and will be delivered through Eurocities website. And my name is Elina Vanne, and I work at the City of Espoo as Development Manager for Sustainable Development. It is really my pleasure to be hosting this event today. And like I said, we have very nice queue of speakers here from different parts of Europe. And we certainly have a very tight schedule. We will have some time for questions as well, but we will now concentrate on keeping the schedule and keeping the timetable so that everyone has time for their say, and also that we have at the end time for the Q&A session so that everyone can participate. And for kind of practicalities, I would like to underline that for all attendees, I ask you to keep your microphones muted and also cameras off. And of course, the presenters are allowed to open them when necessary. This event is really about bringing the cities together, those cities that have a common goal and have been working as trailblazers towards sustainability and towards leadership in climate issues. Of course, we are kind of handling one of the largest crises the humankind has ever faced, the climate change. And the cities have significant role in solving this challenge. The theme, climate leadership, is also very relevant when we think about the annual Eurocities conference that will be held in Espoo from 8th to 10th of June this year. I'm really hoping to see you all there. And of course, we have pretty astonishing queue of speakers there, high-level speakers. For example, Vice President of the European Commission, Frans Timmermans, is joining us. And also the manager of the 100 climate neutral cities mission, Matthew Baldwin, will be there also to continue the dialogue between the Commission and those cities that have ambitions towards climate issues. Yes, and this webinar is, of course, we have called it, this is part of the Road to Espoo, leading us towards the Espoo annual conference and as a warm-up also. And if you happen to have any perspective in mind that should be addressed at the annual conference in June, I would really love to hear that, and Espoo city representatives would like to hear that. So if you have any suggestions, please come to us. You can write it in the comments in the chat box or contact us after this event. Yes, we have plenty of speakers, and let's start with that, with the different perspectives around Europe. And of course, we are tackling the recent development, the hottest topics in Europe for climate ambitious cities. We'll hear interventions from Eurocities policy advisor Louise Coffineau and also Committee of Regions Rapporteur for European missions, Mr. Markku Markkula. And after that, we will have some city leaders sharing their views from Espoo, from Mannheim, and from Porto. And I'm really happy to see you all here today. And yes, if you have any questions and would like to comment something that the speakers present, please use the chat box for that. So write your question there, and we will be using those questions. If we have time, we will take those after presentations, but then we have the Q&A session at the end where we are we have more time to address these questions. And yes, I think it's really time for me to stop talking and give floor to others. So I'm really happy to give floor now to Eurocities policy advisor in environment and climate, Louise Coffineau. She will give us a fresh overview of European forums and projects on climate leadership for cities. Louise, please, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Elina. Thanks a lot for the invitation. I'm absolutely delighted to be with you all this afternoon. I'm Louise Coffineau, working for Eurocities. I'm sure you are all aware of what is Eurocities, but perhaps just a kind of reminder, it's a network-based organization of more than 200 European cities. We work on a broad range of topics, all covering the competencies of cities. And the idea here is really to represent cities towards the EU institutions to give you a stronger voice. I'm working in the European Environmental Forum at Eurocities, and I can invite you to our European Environmental Forum taking place next week from the 6th to the 8th of April in Grenoble on site. It's been 2 years we haven't seen each other, so we are so delighted to meet physically, and we'll discuss how to change our behavior for the good of the planet, from those individual actions we can all take to the collective norms the policymakers can implement. And of course, if you haven't registered yet, you are all welcome to join us. So as Elina said, and I'm not going to go back on the context because we are all aware about it. According to the latest report of the IPCC, global warming is causing increased and in some cases irreversible changes to rainfall patterns, oceans, winds in all regions of the world. For Europe, the report predicts an increase in the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, including heat waves, and warns that a 2 degrees Celsius increase in temperature will have critical effects for nature and people living in cities. However, according to scientists, human action can change the course of the events. Immediate, rapid and large-scale reductions of greenhouse gas emission and reaching climate neutrality by 2050 have the potential to limit climate change and its effects. This is why the European Green Deal, adopted in 2019, has been a game changer for climate in Europe. It gives a new meaning to Europe and it makes it matter to people. Back in 2019, the new European Commission has been elected on a very ambitious climate agenda made of the European Climate Law that you all know, and more than 50 legislative and non-legislative initiatives aiming at making Europe the first climate neutral continent by 2050. And cities have rallied behind the ambitions and the objectives of the European Green Deal from the start, especially on the green and digital transition and on leaving no one behind. The Green Deal is also an enabler. It creates the necessary changes to the legislative landscape, but it's also a driver for investments. Rapidly, we've seen the positive consequences of this new EU agenda on European cities. At Eurocities, we ran a climate survey in summer 2019, a couple of months before the adoption of the European Green Deal, and then a second survey last year. Over 60% of the cities that have responded to the survey last year had then revised their climate targets upwards. Among the respondents, 74% had committed to become climate neutral by 2050, 38% by 2040, and 20% have committed to reach climate neutrality by 2030. So yes, European cities are leading the way to climate neutrality. But despite high ambition, we won't efficiently fight against climate change if we don't work all together towards the same direction. And therefore, we need the right EU landscape, the right EU framework, and some technical and financial support for cities to enable them to deploy to their full potential. So today, I have been asked to present a couple of EU initiatives for and with cities to give the cities the possibilities to learn, network, get funding, expertise, etc. on climate action. Of course, I have only 10 minutes, so I'm just going to mention a few, and this list is not exhaustive. I'm going to start with the most horizontal and not topic-specific one, the 100 Climate Neutral Cities mission. And I won't be long because I know that Mr. Markkula will speak more in cities. I had an issue with my sound. Do you still hear me?
Now we hear you well. There was a time that you froze a bit, but it's okay now. Please continue.
Okay, sorry. So the mission stands out because it really focuses on how to implement the Green Deal in cities through an innovative governance model, which is the Climate City contract, which enable everyone to work together in a city. But again, Mr. Markkula will talk about it more extensively. One of the most successful one is also the Covenant of Mayors. This is a political initiative that gathers more than 10,000 towns and cities who voluntarily committed to implement EU objectives on climate and energy on their territories. Signatories pledge to support the implementation of the EU 55% greenhouse gas reduction target by 2030 and the adoption of a joint approach to tackling mitigation and adaptation to climate change. Another one to mention, more on environment, is the Green City Accord. It's a movement of European mayors committed to making cities cleaner and healthier. It aims to improve the quality of life of all Europeans and accelerate the implementation of in several environmental areas, such as air, water, nature and biodiversity, circular economy and waste, and noise. So cities get technical support and peer-to-peer learning from each other on how to best reach their environmental goals. And so far, we have 93 cities that have signed the accord. Then something more topic specific on mobility, we have the European Mobility Week. It's this European Commission flagship awareness raising campaign on sustainable urban mobility. It promotes behavioral change in favor of active mobility and other clean, intelligent transport solutions. It offers a rich network to cities, campaign materials, a platform for discussion, also visibility for frontrunners and ambitious cities, and technical assistance all along the year. And finally, the last initiative I will present today is the Big Buyers for Climate and Environment. It's a European Commission initiative again, but to promote collaboration between big buyers, big public buyers in implementing strategic public procurement. I'm not gonna tell you that public procurement is a super powerful tool in your hands, in the hands of cities, to drive, in fact, the transition towards climate neutrality. In fact, by working together on pooling their resources, cities can maximize their market power and impact and have a real impact on how to accelerate the climate transition in their territories. So, as I said at the beginning of my intervention, this list of European opportunities for climate leadership with and for cities is not exhaustive at all, but I hope it has given you a kind of snapshot of the European landscape. And of course, I remain at your disposal should you have any questions. Thank you very much. And sorry for the connection issue.
No worries, Louise. It's really pleasure to have you here, and I'm just hearing so much advice for us, and there are so many options for our cities to do. It's about learning, networking, it's about funding opportunities, and really, but I have one question for you. How would you say, if you think about a city that is not yet in this trailblazer position, what would you give as an advice to those cities if they are just starting their climate leadership work? Where to start? What would be the first point that you would say that this is the thing that you have to get in order to work further with the climate leadership work?
So if you give me an hour, I could answer, but perhaps the shorter one would be to join us next week at the EEF, because then we'll really give you a good overview of all the possibilities that exist with cities, but also to join all the conversation we are having at Eurocities, because we are a network of 200 European cities, and each city has its own experience of all those European initiatives. And then it's really by exchanging, by talking to each other, that at the end you will really see what's best for you, what best for you needs at this moment exactly, and not in 10 years and not yesterday, but really now. And so the best way for a city to start is probably to talk to the cities nearby.
I totally agree with you, and myself, I'm just happy to say that I will be next week in Grenoble at the Environmental Forum, and I'm so much looking forward to the networking and the new ideas and really collaboration opportunities that are. So I'm really looking forward to it, and it's really great way to get to know Eurocities work, and of course. We are on our road towards Espoo, so maybe this environmental forum first, and then in June, maybe we'll meet each other in Espoo, and then we can continue the good collaboration and networking.
Absolutely. It's an ongoing discussion, definitely. Thank you, Elina.
Thank you. And there was one question in the chat. So, Louise, how do you see this? The 20% having the climate target at year 2030. Has it been researched? Do they all have concrete plans or roadmaps to reach the target? I guess this 20% is about the cities that have the climate target in 2030.
Absolutely. Those 20% of the respondents of our climate survey saying that they will reach, they will try to reach climate neutrality by 2030 have climate strategies indeed with very strict milestones, very clear ones, and a trajectory on how to achieve climate neutrality by 2030, which is exactly the same for the other cities that commit to reach climate neutrality a bit later on. But indeed, cities have their own plans. It can be part of some initiatives, such as the Covenant of Mayor, that helps cities through the SECAP, to build their trajectory, to build their plan in order to achieve a reduction by 55% by 2030 and then climate neutrality by 2050. Or it can be the own process of cities building their own climate plans. Yes.
Thank you, Louise. And I think we have to move on towards our next speaker. We have Mr. Markku Markkula, and he is former president of Committee of the Regions and currently working as Rapporteur on European missions. Markku, you have your topic about European political developments and legislation on climate from city perspective. I guess this could be a topic that you could talk for hours, right?
Yes, of course. Not just hours, but days.
Indeed, very important topic. But now the floor is yours.
Okay, let me start by first thanking Louisa painting the frame, and I can continue a bit about those cities having a target of climate neutrality 2030, because this first EU mission, which was open, the climate neutral and smart cities by 2030, so it reached a huge positive feedback from the ground. So cities applied, 377 cities applied, 15 of those were not, let's say, eligible, did not meet the criteria. So all of the other cities who applied to be the front runners, the pioneers, so they plan to have the whole city or at least part of the city carbon neutral by 2030. We want to see this on a broader scale, so it's the whole climate neutrality issue, but carbon issue is the core of that. And in some cases, the cities has been taking part of the city out of their application, like it was discussed with the mayor of Rotterdam, so that they left the harbor out because that's too complicated, and the rest of the city can apply to be really and make a target to be carbon neutral already by 2030. So it's a huge movement at the moment by the cities and by the regions. And what I have in the first slide here as well, so it's not only about cities, it's on a broader scale, because 4 out of the 5 missions are really strongly related to climate, focusing on climate or zero pollution and so on. It's soil, water, climate adaptation as well. So because we know that for years the temperatures will be getting higher, So we need to be more ready. And just as an example for your thinking, so EU has calculated that in the climate adaptation, the activities that somewhere in Europe need to be invested on forest fires, floods, earthquakes, and so on. So they average 12 billion euros per year. So it's a huge money flow. And on that, so we understand that we need to do more to speed up the transformation to carbon neutrality and slow down the increase of the temperatures. But every city, every region, including us here in the north, we need to prepare for that. So we need as well our own adaptation plans. And EU, by all these 5 missions, is supporting these implementation activities, motivating, encouraging, investing the minimum 1 billion euro for each of the 5 missions in the coming years. But practically, the investments will be much more private and public investments, national financing, local, regional, and so on. So that is the target of this issue. And I highlighted there, wrote a short sentence on red. So the missions, they are a new and vital instrument based on bottom-up measures, especially bottom-up. So the action is on the ground, on cities and regions, on municipalities, but integrating these activities with active top-down, effective top-down frame. And that's where we need European Commission in addition to the financial and other support measures. If we take the next slide, so that with that I just wanted to highlight so that this Green Deal, which is kind of basement for the activities, so it's really a broad issue. Green and digital, new technology, new societal innovations, they need to go hand in hand. And with respect to the Eurocities or several of our Committee of the Region members, so we have at the end of this April, we have the 2-day plenary, and there we have more than 5 different opinions, official part of the EU decision making on pointing out the perspective from the perspective of cities and regions, what should be done, how the directives should be formalized, and so on. Peter Kurz, you are having one of those opinions on the emission trading systems. I'm having one on these EU missions. Then we have the mayor of Warsaw opinion on energy efficiency directive. We have another on renewable energy directives and a few others. So it's really an important meeting, and you should all be following that one way or another, but as well when preparing for the Espoo Eurocities Assembly annual meeting. So a lot of those feedbacks from those opinions should be analyzed more thoroughly. What do they mean altogether for the cities and regions? So I don't go to detail, but just maybe add one thing that Matthew Baldwin, the mission manager for climate neutral cities, so he will be in Espoo as well. I will practically meet him already a couple of times before that on this issue of how to move on with the missions, because now the review process on who are to be nominated to be the pioneers is ongoing, and we expect to have the results of that already the end of April, although that then we need throughout the Europe nationally but European wide as well organize the collaboration with all the others as well. Okay, if we take the third slide, so there that wants to show a few of the key messages coming from the missions. So on the left hand side, so this new and vital, actually that's defined by the European Commission. The key commissioners are strongly supporting and seeing that this is the future of Europe, how we can invent the future. On the right hand side, so I picked up a few of the key action points, messages, kind of mentality aspects from the opinion. So We need to integrate this top-down, bottom-up. It's very much how to organize the governance as well. So I'm preparing an additional report on the governance on the local and regional level for the French presidency. But then we need to think about the mentality. Traditional management is not enough. We need to orchestrate activities. We need these roadmaps integrated with the portfolios of actions on all the governance levels. But inside every organization, we need to see that there as well. Take an example of the city. It's the political leadership, it's the top and expert civil servants, and it's the citizens, it's the stakeholders, industry, and so on. So this multi-level needs to be seen and reviewed and mobilized on a city level inside as well. We stress heavily the innovation ecosystem, especially using the experiences of smart specialization. We need to focus strongly on human aspects, human and renewable capital, and we need definitely more research, development, innovation. New technologies are needed, since only around 1/3 of the technology that we need to reach the 2030 target exists at the moment. So a lot is needed, and as we've seen with the as a result of the Mr. Putin's war against Ukraine, against Europe, so we need to speed up this transformation, the research as well. And we need these concrete industrial investments, business investments, especially on the handprints on new product services that we can apply and accelerate this transformation as well. And then 2 more slides that they link this issue to the city level. This is just to remind that there is already a lot of good practices, reports. Finland, the 6 largest cities have worked extensively during the previous EU term of office on the cohesion policy, using 100 million euros on these issues. And this, happy to say from the Finnish perspective, so that all our major cities are actively engaged in moving towards carbon neutrality 2030 anyhow, and we will organize here a collaboration not only with those who will be on a European level, these, let's say, official pioneers, but the others as well. And I wanted to highlight these linkages with the UN SDGs, carbon neutrality, and the Espoo voluntary local review that you can look through the net as well. And then my final slide, that in a way as well sums up a bit, so that what does this governance on a local and regional level mean in practice? Every city, you need to operate partly on your own, but you should do more together, European partnerships. And this tries to, it's a kind of arrow integrating the work, symbolizing the work of 4, in this case, 4 value streams of regions with several cities, and those starting with the idea screening, idea funneling, so creating and getting citizens and others, industry especially involved, taking a few as a priorities, moving to a process which in many cases in the EU we have used the innovation camp concept, so where people come together for a couple of days, and then there are a lot of spin-offs, spin-ins, and this works as the whole value creation process between regions as well. So we need EU financing for this partnership issues as well, but we need EU and our own financing to disseminate the results as well. And this is very much what is going on in concrete terms, bringing good, valuable results for the benefit of every city, every municipality, and every company, every citizen as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Markku. It's really a pleasure to hear your views. There is one question on my mind about the collaboration. You talk a lot about collaboration with other cities, but then also about the kind of the local collaboration with, for example, companies and of course citizens as well. Would you like to tell a bit more about, since of course my question would be, if the city must decide what to emphasize, where to concentrate, what is your advice?
I definitely stress heavily that learning is the number one. We need to be open for learning new things, team learning, not just individual personal mastery and so on, shared vision, building that so we know and we build our own road to the future and get everyone on board. So this is studying, learning new competencies, integrating science as the European Union is doing science meet regions, so having the latest results or the researchers as well integrated to this kind of transformation process.
Thank you, Markku. And now we will move forward in our program. Next speaker comes from Espoo. Mr. Mayor, now the stage is yours.
Thank you, Elina, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jukka Mäkelä. I'm the mayor of the city of Espoo. Dear colleagues, dear friends of European cities, the academia and companies, it is a great pleasure to meet all of you to discuss and exchange ideas on how cities will achieve climate neutrality. In my presentation, I'll share Espoo's key solutions to a carbon neutral future. But first, I want to say that, of course, we all stand with Ukraine. Espoo city strategy has been written in the format of the Espoo story since 2013. It tells the story of where we have come from, where we are now, and where we are going to in the future. Being resident and customer oriented is our first value. The Espoo story and its concrete targets have been prepared together with our community, residents, the private sector, and research and development partners. Carbon neutrality by 2030 has been defined as one of Espoo's top 7 strategic goals for the term 2021-2025. We are well underway in delivering this target on time. Espoo is the second largest and the fastest growing city in Finland. Despite the growth, the total carbon dioxide emissions have decreased 15%, and the emissions per capita have already decreased 50% from 1990. Today, more than ever, the clean energy transition has proven to be urgent. We need to become independent from fossil fuels. We are working to ensure low emissions, reasonable priced energy, and increased self-sufficiency. To build a strong overall vision and commitment to systemic change, Espoo has since 2013 adopted the Sustainable Espoo program. This ambitious strategic cross-sectoral program promotes dialogue and co-creation between political leaders, city officials, research and innovator actors, citizen forums, and non-governmental organizations. Espoo is committed to reaching the Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development Goals as a pioneer city by 2025. Espoo is also a pioneer in reconciling a growing city and biodiversity. We are committed that our urban development takes care of, revitalizes, and increases biodiversity. Our goal is to achieve no net loss by 2035. Of course, it is difficult for a growing city, but but that's our target. In 2021, the world's leading environmental reporting organization, CDP, ranked 95 cities worldwide on its A list. Despite stricter assessment than before, Espoo retained its A rating for climate change mitigation and adaptation. The climate solutions in Espoo focus on reducing emissions of energy, transport, construction, and land use. We are finding the most impactful ways to cut carbon dioxide emissions at a rapid pace. Earlier, we heard about the different forums and initiatives uniting European cities to solve the climate challenge together. Espoo has been part of the Covenant of Mayors since 2010, prepared Sustainable Energy Climate Action Plan in 2019, and earlier this year we applied to become one of the 100 climate neutral and smart cities in the New Cities mission. Co-learning with other European cities is an important tool for us in reaching our targets. Next, I will give you 3 examples on how Espoo is reducing its carbon dioxide emissions in cooperation with our innovation and business community. District heating creates the largest share of climate emissions in Espoo, but also in the past 5 years, the most rapid emissions reductions. Already almost 50% district heating is a common way of heating in Finland, with over 90% of apartment blocks connected to a district heating network. In Espoo, we have 250,000 end users of district heating. The city of Espoo does not own the district heating network, but we cooperate closely with the owner energy company Fortum. Espoo and Fortum has committed to carbon neutral district heating during 2020s, and coal will be completely abandoned already by 2025. Recently, Fortum and Microsoft has announced world's largest collaboration in Espoo to heat homes, services, and businesses that are connected to its district heating system with sustainable waste heat from a new data center region. This investment is a flagship example of climate action and circularity. It will be the largest waste heat recycling project in the world, reducing about 400,000 tons of carbon dioxide emissions annually and producing about 60% of the area's heating in the future. City Board has also decided about compensation of the loss in natural habitats of the area where the data center will be located. Espoo is opening its city districts as testing environments for co-creation and co-development with multiple stakeholders. One example includes the former industrial district of Kera that will be developed into a forerunner in sustainable development, circular economy and digitalization. The area has 3 billion euros of investments expected in the next 15 years. Measures to reduce emissions include heat pumps and intelligent energy solutions, excellent existing and new public transport connections, circular solutions to construction, such as using crushed concrete waste. All these measures have been planned in close cooperation with local landowners and investors, and measures combined will result to emission 56% lower than the average in a similar size area in Espoo. Further reduction potentials we have identified to achieve a carbon neutral area by 2030. The Kera district already works as a testbed. Lux Turin 5G Nokia-led unique network of smart poles provides a platform for new data-driven services. On the global level, Espoo emissions are not significant, but impact-wise we can be much bigger than our size. Our cooperation with universities, research organizations and business generate solutions that not only cut emissions in Espoo, but have a significant carbon handprint. This means positive impact on emissions elsewhere. Together with partners such as VTT, Technical Research Center, Aalto University, companies like Kone and Nokia, we are piloting emerging smart and sustainable technologies that will help to tackle the global climate challenge. This is our true impact. In Espoo, as a network city with 5 city centers, the emissions cuts of the transport sector are a pressing issue to be solved during this decade. This requires both EU and national level policy action, funding and support. Cities need to be effectively involved in the national and EU policy-making processes. Cities are the main contributors to climate change, to its solutions and the implementation of the solutions. In effective climate change mitigation and adaptation, cities should be heard and supported in national and EU level. Ability to react to changing circumstances and to create welfare and safe society through green transition is important. Current topics of discussion: European safety situation, energy crisis, pandemic, global sustainability crisis, and other occurring crises. Finding ways to decrease the dependency of fossil fuels at a fast pace is the greatest challenge uniting Europe and the world today, not only for climate, but also for security. Therefore, climate action will be high on the agenda of the Eurocities annual conference that we have the pleasure of hosting in Espoo in June. We are looking forward to meeting you all there and to continue the exchange of ideas on building strong cooperation and commitment for climate leadership in cities. Thank you all and welcome to the City of Espoo.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Mäkelä. It's really pleasure to hear Espoo views, and that's not all, because as a host of this event, we were able to have 2 presentations from Espoo. The cooperation with private sector is important to Espoo's climate work, and that's why we wanted to invite another speaker. So we have another speaker is presenting the business aspect to make the Espoo's work even more concrete for all you attendees here today. So Pia Tanskanen, you work as head of environment at Nokia. What do you think it's the most important thing for private sector and cities to work together? I'm hoping that you have answer to this question. Please, the stage is yours.
So thank you so much, and I'm really happy to talk after Espoo because Espoo is our home base we are headquartered in Espoo, but today Nokia has offices and locations in more than 120 countries, but really Espoo is the head office location for us. When we look at Nokia's approach to environmental topics and sustainability, it's very much aligned what we heard before. So we aim at minimizing our footprint in everything what we do, in how we design our products, how do we deliver them, and how our products or the network infrastructure products are being used, and how they provide connectivity to citizens and to companies all over the world. So this is the traditional environmental part of the corporate work, minimizing your environmental footprint when it comes to emissions and materials. We have set ourselves climate targets, and those are being approved by Science Based Target Initiative, and they are to halve the emissions by 2030, and the baseline is 2019, and then to be carbon neutral in 2040. And they also have been providing data to earlier mentioned initiative CDP, where they have classified Nokia as a leadership category in climate disclosure. But then on top of minimizing the footprint of the business, the bigger impact for our industry comes from the handprint. So how can we help other industries, citizens, cities to be more sustainable? How can we use digitalization in order to make this green transition real, and how to accelerate that? So as we have a slogan saying, there's no green without digital. So we really believe that digitalization is very important. It's a must enabling impact for green transition that we need to take. But then how to do it in practice? Two important points. The first one is, of course, the collaboration. So we need really everybody in the value chain to work together to create the ecosystem that will come with new innovations, come with such practices and cases that are win-win for everybody. So we need both demand and supply in order to make changes that will help us in this very much needed transition to greener societies. And then we need data. And that's very old principle, but without data you can't really measure, and without measurement it's very difficult to show what the change is. And projects like the Lux-Turm, we have been able to pilot in Kera area in Espoo, is an excellent example of let's try something out, let's have a good piloting ground for trying things that will inspire hopefully others, and we can spread the good ideas and accelerate the needed transformation. So really the most important thing, creating ecosystems together in collaboration with everybody in the value chain. So that's really my take on the topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pia. It's really a pleasure to have you say the private sector views on collaboration. My question to both Mayor Mäkelä and for you, Pia, it would be that how could we enhance the collaboration? We can always be a bit afraid that we work in funneling situations, meaning silos. So how can we break the silos to increase the collaboration, to make better collaboration, and in that sense better solutions for climate and sustainability?
So for me, a lot of things start from really trying things out in practice. So not being afraid or to really start piloting even the crazy ideas, because from those examples we learn how to better work together and what are the solutions that will work in practice, and then being able to measure the positive impact of the solutions, really to then accelerate and make it in a larger scale. So really start doing something, work together, find interesting projects, put your smart heads together and to create ideas. In these things, 1 + 1 is always more than 2. It really is.
And sometimes even crazy ideas. What would you say about crazy ideas, Mayor Mäkelä?
Yes, that's okay, crazy ideas. But I think The collaboration is the most important thing in the field of sustainability, and we need to have a collaboration with the cities, with the companies, and with the academia and universities and research centers. But it is also very important to have a very good collaboration with the residents. And as I told you, we made our city strategy, the story of Espoo, together with our residents. And many of my colleagues have asked me that what it means when you say that you have the resident orientation. It have to be difficult. And I have said that it's not difficult. Just ask. We ask our residents what is important, and the sustainability is very important to our residents. When we made our city strategy, we asked even all the 6-year-old preschoolers what is important in the Espoo in the future, and they have very good answers, especially in the field of sustainability. So I think that's not that difficult. Just ask your partners and collaborate.
Excellent, thank you. And I think now we need to move forward, and maybe at the end, at the Q&A session, we will have more questions, because next we will turn our focus towards Germany. We have invited the city of Mannheim to share their great and participatory approach on the local Green Deal. Mr. Mayor Peter Kurz, I would like to give the floor to you. Could you put your mic on? We can't quite hear you.
Okay,
excellent. Thank
very
you.
old mistake. So yeah, thank you so much, and dear colleagues and friends and participants, thank you for having the city of Mannheim and me, and thank you for the really interesting presentations so far. It's always inspiring to hear from Espoo. When we accepted the challenge of to apply for the mission 100 climate neutral and smart cities by 2030, we already knew how big this ambition would be, but we didn't know that with the Ukraine crisis, independence from fossil fuels would take on a new importance. Now we have to deal with 3 crises at once: the climate crisis, the COVID pandemic, and the Ukraine crisis. To find the way to sustainable, climate neutral and inclusive cities where no one is left behind has lost none of its urgency. On the contrary, we decided to apply for the 100 CNC challenge in the framework of our local Green Deal. We increased our ambition, and we see with the mission 100 climate neutral cities the essential advantage to create via the climate city contracts examples for a real multi-level governance which we are still missing. Today's webinar features some of the 377 cities that applied with the expression of interest and the ambition to be climate neutral by 2030, and that it is a very complex project you see on our slides. As a pilot city for a local Green Deal, we want to use the local Green Deal governance approach to tackle this ambition in an integrated way. Mannheim uses the national and international networks as a knowledge source, and we support the joint efforts of cities through active participation and fulfillment of commitments. To this end, Mannheim regularly cooperates with other cities on climate issues in peer-to-peer projects and exchanges experiences on accelerating climate neutrality, on stakeholder involvement and citizen engagement, most recently at COP26 in Glasgow. With our local Green Deal, we translate the necessary ambition for climate neutrality into concrete local action. In this way, we want to shape our city together with all stakeholders and the urban society. IDEAL expresses This is our headline, a personal commitment, and that we want to create a more livable Mannheim. Our application for 100 climate neutral cities and our local Green Deal is embedded in a framework which is defined by our mission statement Mannheim 2030, which is based on the 2030 agenda and the 17 sustainable development goals, and developed in a big participation process with 2,500 participants. The European Green Deal acts as a driver for our city's sustainability and climate strategy. This is also reflected in the Mannheim message that we adopted at the Mannheim 2020 Conference for Sustainable Cities and Towns. We see the localization of the EU Green Deal as a great opportunity because it helps us to focus our local policies and accelerate our transformation processes. Our local Green Deal is not another strategy or plan. It's a platform, framework, and a campaign to create deals. We are focused on a socially just transformation. We are a highly industrialized city, so the economic impacts of and needs for the transformation are a specific task for our city. We hope that the 100 climate neutral city mission makes this concrete, visible, and towards for the EU, the federal and regional government. To accelerate the path to a sustainable climate neutral city, we use the 4 key principles of the Blueprint for Action, to which we contributed as a mentor city under the ICC Intelligent Cities initiative. We need an integrated governance approach that unites all the goals of the individual fields of action of the local Green Deal and creates strong partnerships with stakeholders as well as a platform for co-creation and citizen engagement. We strive to align all our projects with the city's sustainability and climate goals. In order to better manage the processes with the urban community, we are currently building a new governance structure with a specialized team that activates and coordinates both the reaching of sectoral agreements and at the neighborhood level. For deep structural change, the city is building bridges with the local Green Deal between the sectoral priorities of biodiversity, sustainable food systems, sustainable agriculture, clean energy, sustainable industry, construction and renovation, sustainable mobility, pollution abatement, and climate neutrality. We strengthen the links to innovation, knowledge transfer, and the comprehensive involvement of all stakeholders. We want to pay particular attention to the co-benefits and adverse impacts of the single strategies and projects, especially regarding the just transition. We established strong partnerships with SMEs and industrial companies, trade and service institutions to develop deals for the successful implementation of the climate neutrality strategy. The established initiative of large industrial companies is collaborating on measures in the industrial sector, and the Business Climate Alliance has itself committed to the city's climate goals and recently presented its big deals on climate neutrality. The Municipal Council's decision to develop the CCAP, our Climate Action Plan 2030, with a targeted orientation towards the mission 100 climate neutral cities, made the goal of a climate-friendly, climate-resilient, and climate-neutral city a top political priority. Mannheim is currently in the design of CCAP 2030 with all stakeholders of the city society, from citizens to utilities, housing, and business. The key deals, named as interventions in the 100 climate neutral city assessment to achieve carbon neutrality, are already on track. As a major industrial location, the local Green Deal in Mannheim therefore places a special focus on projects for the transformation of industry and the decarbonization of energy production, and especially the district heating and the transport sector, of course. At the city level, the Climate Action Plan 2030, the Mobility Master Plan 2035, the Sustainable Urban Development Plan, and the Biodiversity Strategy and a plastic strategy are currently being developed in 2022 and form the objectives for concrete deals. A reduction of at least 80% of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 is aimed for climate neutrality within the 100 climate neutral cities. The net zero greenhouse gas scenario takes into account local potentials, needs, and framework conditions. The coal plant closure until 2030 will reduce total emissions by 89%. The potential for green power generation is 1 terawatt hours. Decarbonization of district heating is planned through waste heat, deep geothermal, river heat pumps, and biomass. Finally, I would like to give a few examples of the main interventions as already committed deals for climate neutrality in Mannheim. Coal phase out by 2030. The largest hard coal-fired power plant in Germany supplies more than 60% of the inhabitants with district heating. It is a landmark deal to replace the heat supply by river heat, geothermal, and biomass. The Green Corridor Northeast. The German National Garden Show will be hosted by Mannheim in 2023. It is designed as a platform for promoting the SDGs in an unprecedented cooperation with the federal government and as a transformative action for the city itself. The 82-hectare former military conversion site of the Spinelli Barracks will be the venue for the National Garden Show until 2023, after which it will remain as a permanent green corridor northeast. Almost 3/4 of the area will be unsealed and be green in the future, bringing Mannheim residents more fresh air and quality of life. With a traffic trial towards more quality of stay, additional bicycle spaces, seating, and more green in the city, short-term parking spaces will become experience and meeting spaces from March 2022. With the interruption of through traffic, the city center will become an even better place to linger. The renovation wave of the city-owned housing company, which already has made great progress, will continue, and we will continue to modernize its building stock to a high level of energy efficiency with another 4,000 flats. It will reduce heating requirements by 40% and CO2 emissions by 55%. Let me conclude. We think of the enormous challenge of the energy, heat, and mobility transition as a joint task, which we must take on together. I hope that the current crisis is not a backlash, but rather an opportunity to convince people that change is urgent and inevitable. But achieving climate neutrality depends not only on technical feasibility, it depends on conditions we don't control. Planning procedures, the availability of materials, and a lack of or inappropriate funding and financing programs. Cities can lead the way to carbon neutrality in ambitious ways like the 100 climate neutral cities, but they cannot go it alone. We need to accelerate the implementation of our ambitions and create the right framework conditions for this at local, regional, national, and European level. That's why we are here today, to support and encourage each other and convince other levels of government on the way out of all crises for our livable cities. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor Kurz. It's really a pleasure to hear what's going on in your city. My question would once again go to the collaboration. How is it that you have started or initiated the collaboration with different stakeholders, and what is their role in that work, in that climate work? Is it so that they work together with you? Do you have common goals, or are they the ones that are doing the CO2 emission reductions, or how would you describe your stakeholder map?
We started with involving the stakeholders on different levels in different projects in the past already. And a big step forward was the Mission 2030 I mentioned. So this is our Mannheim 2030 mission statement, and this is based on the SDGs. And as I mentioned, we invited with a lot of events, many people really to contribute and to have this common vision also. So we have a joint platform, let's say, and we expanded this with alliances. I would call them a climate alliance with businesses, and this is about direct contributions. So this is the same concept we now apply also for our local Green Deal. We started with this kind of deals a bit earlier, and so we had some experiences how it could work. And of course, we know that regarding climate, our footprint as City Hall is rather small. We are accountable for, in the end, 4% of the carbon footprint of our city. So if we want to reach climate neutrality, it's about what can we achieve together. And so, of course, we need a commitment of all for these goals. And this is quite an ongoing discussion, because now the application for 100 climate neutral cities set really kind of, I don't want to say a new agenda, but it raised very much the ambitions. And we are, of course, in discussions with our industry, and that's why we already also built a new platform with the industry, and to create joint projects among the different companies. And so it's that's why I said our local Green Deal is not just another plan. It's a platform, and it's rather a movement.
That sounds simply great. It's really great to hear the different ways that cities collaborate and build the collaboration. But now I think it's time to move on. After Central Europe, we are turning our focus towards South. We have invited Porto, the chair of Eurocities Environmental Forum, to share with us the key aspects of Porto Climate Pact. We have the pleasure to hear from Vice Mayor Filipe Araújo how Porto is becoming climate neutral. Please, Mr. Araújo, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. I'll try to share here my presentation. Let's see if we can see it. I think
yes.
So.
All good.
Very good. It's a pleasure to be here. I will try to make you understand a little bit what we have been doing in terms of all our commitments towards the carbon neutrality. First of all, let me just present Porto. Porto population is 230,000 inhabitants, but we are very small in terms of area, only 42 square kilometers, so a very dense city also. One of the things that we have been working for a long term, so this is the Porto's main priority, but involved on the environmental strategy in three fronts. So in nature-based solutions, so being inspired by nature to plan and manage the territory. On the circular economy, so promoting the city's transition to a new paradigm to increase the circularity and to change the economy towards circularity. And also on climate change, where we have been acting on not only on that adaptation, but also on a lot of mitigation, decarbonization. So and this is a lot of what I will be talking during the presentation. So we have been coming from a long way since 2008 that Porto has a detailed monitoring of the city emissions. And we have been achieving, and the reduction of 48% is regarding 2019. So we were able to accomplish the targets that were set a long time before of 45 reduction up to 2020. And already in 2020, we have the latest figures, which points out for more than 50% in the reduction. So I have to stress, as the mayor before stressed, that the role of the municipality is in the decarbonization of the city is also very limited. We account for 6% of the total greenhouse emissions that we have in the city. So what we have been, and I think we are a lot aligned with many of the cities that we applied also to the 100 climate neutral and smart cities, is that we are trying now to achieve, due to this track record on reductions, we know that we could achieve the neutrality in the next decade, but we are trying to bring it to 2030. So we have ambitious goals as the other cities that just mentioned. And it's this emergency of neutrality to show that this is possible is something that the city is working very closely. So we are on the challenges that we have on the buildings and services. They account for 51% of the emissions, and on the transport side we have 39% of the emissions. And these are the areas that, of course, will require the most intense decarbonization efforts. And we will do all we can to respect of the other 6, and we have been doing a lot. And I think what the municipality can also show is to lead the way. So we have, leading by example, we can definitely influence a lot of the other stakeholders that will work on the other 39 on the transport and 51% on the buildings. So we have been using a lot of our tools to change this. And first, on the mobility side, to invest a lot on the public transport, on the smooth mobility, on the electric vehicles. And so we have been changing completely, for example, the fleet for our bus company. We have been right now a lot of constructions on the new metro network, new metro lines that we are building, new cycling paths, and promoting also the walking in the city, and a lot of the effort also to reallocate and modernize and have new intermodal terminals. We will inaugurate in a few months the new intermodal terminal, the biggest one that we have in the city. But we have been working on the other aspects that I already heard, also in the digitalization of the society, in order for people to have to go to one side to another in the city, just to make small things that the digitalization can help, and especially on the public services. We have been renovating all the lighting. We only acquire renewable energy. So all the energy that is used on public lighting, on municipal buildings, on the swimming pools, on everything that you see that is managed by the municipality, it's all coming from renewable energies. We are investing a lot on the energy side. So seeing a city as the producer of energy, and we are doing that on all our buildings, and especially on something that we are responsible. We have 13 of the buildings in the city are social housing owned by the municipality, and we are doing a big effort on providing them energy communities in order to also cope with a problem that we have, that is energy poverty. And all our new buildings, we are building with new certifications for sustainability, like the LEED or BREEAM international ones. Another big effort is the one that we are facing, is that if we are only accountable for 6%, how we will involve everyone on these goals for the city. So we launched the Porto Climate Pact, and the main objective is to invite everyone in the city, so the private sector, all the organizations that we have, all the stakeholders, but also the citizens, to participate actively on the city's carbon neutrality being achieved in 2030. So it's something that depends on everyone and can only be achieved if everyone makes their own parts. So the pact foresees the commitment of these agents in a a vision of a city where carbon neutrality, despite being a considerable effort, means also a good opportunity to leverage businesses to have a more sustainable and also just or fair city. And sometimes, at the same time, it intends to underline that carbon neutrality depends on everyone and can only be achieved with collective effort. So this is our pact towards the next generations. And we are very much aligned in a common effort to have everyone contributing to all the targets that we have seen before. Many aspects that we have been working are related also with the adaptation. So all the nature-based solutions, how we can use what nature always inspired us, and the many solutions that nature has to cope with the challenges we are applying to our cities. So rehabilitation of our parks, but also adaptation when some places where we will have a large amount of water coming from heavy rains, how we can absorb it, like the sponge effect that we have learned from many cities. So many of these are already implemented in the city, and many new others we will be implementing in the near future. The one interesting aspect is that we are also acting. We have a new master plan for the city, and it offered us an opportunity also to create an environmental index. And the environmental index is more or less how we can make the right incentives for the new builders or the rehabilitation that we will see in the forthcoming years to adopt the right bioclimatic measures, the nature-based solutions, or even the new energy and the new sustainable building. So all of this is a very hard and difficult challenge. We are involving a lot of scientists and our scientific community on this, and we will hope to have this environmental index in a short term to help the next 10 years of our master plan to go in the right direction on the rehabilitation development of the city. So we will have local and regional challenges, and we have to continue to promote locally a strong relationship and collaboration between everyone, especially, of course, all the entities that work in the city, but also the research and development community. Also to enable the participation of the citizens and all the active agents on the co-creation of the decarbonization policies. For example, one of the parts that we are just seeing was a co-creation project with all the social neighborhoods that lived in a deprived area, where we bring them all together to create this nature-based solution park together with them. Also at the European level, it's very important to continue to share the experience. We have learned a lot from each other, from different cities, and we have been able to accelerate by learning from each other a lot of the things that we have been doing and being inspired by the best practices. We need, of course, also to be influencing how we can in the funding programs and leveraging and creating the synergies that we just heard also before between several cities in Europe. To finalize, just let me say that we are also, due to the crisis that we have been facing, due to the invasion that we just saw, we need political leadership, and we need the stability also to guarantee that we can face these upcoming years and until 2030, and can achieve and accomplish our goals. We have all know, as city leaders, that all the electoral cycles at national and local levels also always puts a lot of pressure on these strategic and medium and long-term plans. On the regulatory risks, it's also important to maintain a fit-for-purpose legal and regulatory and fiscal framework. And at the finance risk, we know that currently, with the current situation and the uncertainty that we are, and the rising of the inflation and all the fluctuations that we have in the markets, we have to act together. Especially Europe has to act together, for example, on when we are trying to buy for all the constructions, all the things that we want to do, when we are trying to buy products or materials that are not coming from our markets, that are outside of our markets, and we have to act together in order to cope with all the material costs and all the logistics problems that we are facing. So there is some risks that we are posed together, but I'm sure that Europe will lead definitely on these areas and show the world that it's possible to have the best quality of life together and with all these aspects of climate adaptation, climate mitigation, inclusive a new way of dealing with the economy in the circular economy. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing your views and what you have been doing at the city of Porto. I do have one question here for you, and I'm quite impressed that you have reached in the first month already 100 subscriptions. What do you think is the main driver for the companies to join the Porto Climate Pact? It's really impressive.
It has been quite surprising what we have been achieving. We launched, and after a few days, we already had several companies trying to come to us. We have a mix of companies from different sectors, from the energy side, from the transport side. We have also big companies and small ones also acting. We have a lot of academia. We also had a lot of schools, for example. So schools also joining to the pact, to the commitment. But the companies have come to us to understand how they can help the city. So it's good to have a city that allows them to show them and them to show everyone what they are doing in order to increase and to achieve the goals that we have set for the city. And many of these companies are doing a lot, and many of others have joined the pact because they want to learn how they can do a lot more. So it's a mix of reasons why they are committing.
Thank you. And now we are moving towards the questions. And now I'm asking my colleague Nina Nousjärvi to take the stage. And please, Nina.
Thank you, Elina. I think we have time only probably for one question, and we have a question for Mayor Mäkelä. How do you manage or steward those collaborations that you have on sustainability? For example, what kind of visibility do you have on the ones who support and in what missions, for example, in this cross-sectoral collaboration that you're having or in the SDG sustainability ecosystem?
Thank you. A very good question. First, I have to thank you, Peter and Filipe. A very interesting presentations, and there's a lot we can learn from each other. And I think this dialogue between the cities is very important. Very interesting presentations, and I think this kind of collaboration is very important. But about the collaboration in the city of Espoo, we have learned different ways to collaborate, and I think one of the main things is that it's easier to collaborate in Finland because Finland is a small country, and the city of Espoo is a small city. We have about 300,000 residents, and I think all the actors know each other quite well. It's quite easy to collaborate in our innovation ecosystem with the universities. The Aalto University is located in the city of Espoo, with the research centers. For example, the VTT Technical Research Center is located in the city of Espoo, and companies like Nokia and Kone and energy companies like Fortum and Neste are also located in the city of Espoo, and a lot of startup companies and growing companies are also located in the city of Espoo, and it means that we have a lot of collaboration in our innovation ecosystem with universities, with research centers, and with companies. And I think it's even easier to have this collaboration because we are having the same agenda. For example, the Sustainable Development Goals with United Nations, we all share the same goals, and it makes it much easier to collaborate and have a strategic partnership, for example, with university. If you are following the Sustainable Development Goals and trying to reach those goals, it means that you have the same agenda in the city and in the university and in the companies, and it makes it easier to collaborate. We are also having agreements with companies. For example, the Fortum, it's the city of Espoo and our energy company Fortum. Together, we have the same goal to be carbon neutral 2030 and have a carbon neutral district heating by 2025. And we have the same goal with the company, and I think that's a very good way to collaborate, to have the same goal with your companies in your city or in your region. There's few examples. I don't know, Nina, if this is enough, but it is a good start.
Thank you. Then we have another question that I would ask really briefly you to answer. Dear mayors, your figures stem mostly from times before COVID and Ukrainian war. Do you think that it should be adapted, these crises, to the exploding prices, inflation, possible rationing of oil and gas? What do you think? And brief answers. If we start with Mayor Peter Kurz.
I think we all don't know how the impacts will be in the next months and years. But regarding CO2 footprint, we experience right now the opposite, because we have to accelerate to decrease our dependency on gas and oil and coal, especially from Russia. But in the end, our total dependency and so right now it's rather a push for the renewables. Again, of course, there is the question if there may be in Germany is a longer time for the phase out of coal, but in terms of dependency, it wouldn't be hard coal. So this wouldn't affect us in Mannheim. So it's of course we have to think of all the implications, but right now it's not about changing the figures of our strategy to reduce the carbon footprint.
Thank you. Then Vice Mayor Filipe Araújo, what do you think, briefly?
Well, very briefly, I think it's something that at least cities, and we have been talking in many debates, we have we want to continue. Our citizens demand that we need to continue to our goals, and that's why we are very committed with the 2030 goals. And what we have seen is that we have been talking, and cities have been talking for a long time about the energy independence, the energy transition, and everything. And now it comes to, it's shown in a total urgency that we have to accelerate this change. Fortunately, in Portugal, we have come a long way in terms of renewable energy. In terms of electrical energy, we have 60% of the production is already renewable. We don't have used coal anymore, but we have still a long way in order to achieve the independence, the energy independence. If we want to achieve some of this, we need to accelerate, and cities is definitely something that we have to work on, and especially a topic that is energy communities, which is something that we need all together to achieve and to accelerate, because it puts a lot of pressure on the electrical way of we see it nowadays is a totally disruption, let's say.
Yes, thank you. Then really briefly, Mayor Jukka Mäkelä, we are going on time.
Yeah, all right, but first, I fully agree, Peter and Philip, about accelerate our actions. And as I said today, more than ever, the clean energy transition has proven to be urgent. We need to become independent from the fossil fuels. And that's why I think we should use these crises to have more collaboration and to accelerate our actions.
Thank you.
Thank you, and again, welcome to Espoo in the summer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. It's been interesting and impressive. I can think about plenty of adjectives that begin with letter I. Informative, interactive, and inspiring afternoon. Many thanks to all our great speakers and also to the audience. It's been really pleasure to have you all on board on this webinar. We have learned today that there are so many ways to achieve the climate neutrality, and the central aspect for cities is to take the leadership, bring actors together, and to build a common vision for achieving the climate neutrality locally. And in June in Espoo, mentioned already many times, we'll continue this discussion, and also we are inviting the European Commission to join the dialogue. I would like to close with a reminder that our call for speakers is still open. For example, we have mayor's panel discussion right after the keynote of Mr. Timmermans. So we would really like to encourage climate ambitious cities from around the continent to apply for this opportunity. The city of Espoo is looking forward to welcoming to all of you to Espoo in June. In the meantime, let's stay in touch and keep building our sustainable cities together with our stakeholders, but together with other cities as well. Thank you all, and have a pleasant afternoon.
Thank you.